Hollywood tells us that divine revelation usually comes after a morning sunrise or after an epic Hans Zimmer soundtrack. But real life isn't like that. In real life, you have to sit with the emotions. With 600 seconds, feel like an eternity. What's the hardest thing you've ever done in your life? I've recently realized that life and reality are two different things. Life, your life, can be relative, but reality is always objective. In a really important conversation from my life a year ago, I claimed that, isn't everything relative? And the answer, yes, Christian, I think it is. But in contrast, you can't bend an objective reality. It's like taking a Bible verse out of context from a story where it has narrative importance that doesn't align with something that happened to you. In other words, what I'm trying to say is you can't force a lesson you want to conveniently have learned from something that happened to you. You're going to have to sit and face the repercussions from what you did. True to the story. Be uncensored and brutally honest with yourself. Try the following autopilot thought experiment. If you were to go on cruise control or autopilot for the next week, how would that week look like? And not the idealized version of yourself you sell to others, but the true average of your own willpower, diligence, and discipline. What would your net force be after those 7 days? Will you find cheap excuses not to study? Or will you decide to wake up every day and become a winner? Because time is a scalar quantity. It has a magnitude but no direction, which means you can either have a net zero improvement after those 7 days or a positive net improvement. Newton's first law says that an object at rest will stay at rest unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. And we've just learned that we'll have to be our own unbalanced force. Let's draw a free body diagram. Think of yourself as the free body diagram. You have gravity pulling down on you and a normal force pushing up on you. You are in equilibrium. And the best way to move past the fear of friction is to face it. On the other side of processed emotion is divine revelation. That means however tough something is, like a brutal calculus course, you'll have to sit with it in silence, turn off the irritating ambient music and just face the textbook. When we're faced with tough decisions, with the right and wrong answer isn't inherently obvious like black and white because it's important to us. Maybe try this reverse method of thinking next time. Instead of our first instinct being to decide on the two different solutions to the problem, how about we initially decide whether we're going to follow our head or our heart? And then afterwards, we see which solution aligns corresponding to our head or our heart. And then just simply accepting the consequences unconditionally via the part of the body we chose to follow. Let's make a humorous example. In Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, Tobey Maguire's character struggled with an identity crisis because he tried to be Spider-Man and Peter Parker simultaneously. But being both proved to be paradoxical, because being Spider-Man meant he had to leave his personal relationships behind and risking endangering those he loved most. But leaving Spider-Man meant he left the city to rot, and innocent civilians could get hurt. Paradoxical, and the right answer in the movie wasn't inherently obvious. Everything on earth has a mass. That's law. But not everything has a velocity. Momentum can be argued as the product of your mass and your velocity, where mass is your discipline and velocity is discipline day after day. We can't argue that going through the motions day by day with zero improvement will leave us with momentum. And I think that's why so many people have a hate-hate relationship with hard work, because we view it like reporting to a war general at the end of the day and telling him what he did or didn't achieve. The change is a mental shift. Either a bigger mass or more velocity. Because we need to start seeing the art in diligent hard work for a bigger purpose than ourselves. Routine is a blessing. It makes doing the right thing easy. But what happens when the routine breaks? Let's say we have to write 3 tests and the markers take the best 2 out of 3. And you already aced the first 2. What's the use in writing a third, spending time behind the books when it's going to be in vain? You should study because of principle. Principles are what differentiate us from other people. That's how we build a steadfast identity. That's also how we find like-minded people that also know to study for a test you might think is in vain or aid you in the long term for exams around the corner. So after studying for a test for countless hours and you still failed, so you can't break that loop, the only thing we can't stop to try is to keep on trying.